Alright guys, we're back here with some more fantasy baseball content here. I'm going to re-rank the top 50 outfielders in baseball in a tier list. I've been going through re-ranking my positional tier list from the offseason over the last few weeks now. I've done closers, I've done starting pitchers, I've done shortstops, and now here are the outfielders. I'm going to keep re-ranking all the positions as we go over the next few weeks. Also, just about every week on this channel, I do a waiver wire video, I do a lot of trade stuff, so if you guys don't want to miss any of the new videos coming out, please go down there and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you enjoy this video, please drop it a like. I just got the 6,000 subscribers after last video, so thank you guys so much for all the continued support. Now, calendar's turning to June. I want to get another 1,000 subscribers. The goal is 7,000 subscribers by the end of June. So again, right down there, big black subscribe button if you guys are not subscribed to the channel. But now let's get into it. Number one outfielder, obviously the best player in baseball, best player in fantasy baseball. One of the best seasons we've seen in baseball in recent memory, Aaron Judge, blatant and obvious. No one's even close to him. There's like a 20-foot gap between him and tier 2, and the guys in tier 2 are superstars as well. Judge right now is doing the Luis Arias contact thing, getting near a 400 batting average while also having Aaron Judge power. The last time we got this late in the season and someone was hitting at least 395 was Joe Mauer back in 2009, and Mauer that whole season only hit 28 home runs. Judge right now is on pace for about 55 home runs. It's stupid what he's doing. He's so much better than everybody else in baseball right now. All you have to do is tip your cap. Now we're moving on to tier 2 though, and this tier has Kyle Tucker, Corbin Carroll, Fernando Tatis Jr., Ronald Acuna Jr., and Juan Soto. This is still the cream of the crop in baseball. Even though these guys are tier 2 outfielders, these are probably like 5 of the best 12 players in the whole league, easily, hands down. First is Tucker, just absolutely smashing his contract year right now with the Cubs. 900 OPS, on pace for 35 homers and 45 steals. Amazingly efficient as a base stealer so far this season too, without being caught yet. Just an awesome player. Very underrated still, I think. Then we have Corbin Carroll and the Diamondbacks. Carroll's having an amazing season, and the reason he's jumped up a level is because his power is very, very back. He's had some really uneven and inconsistent power output over the last few years that can basically totally be traced back to a pretty scary shoulder injury he had in 2023. Before that shoulder popped out in the July game against the Mets, Carroll had 18 homers through the first half of the 2023 season. After that shoulder injury, he only had 7 homers in his final 73 games that year. Then when the last season started, he only hit 4 home runs over his first 93 games, which was kind of unthinkable for a player of Carroll's caliber that we saw the year before. That 93 game mark is pretty important too, because that was just about exactly 1 year after that shoulder popped out. Then from that point to the rest of the year, he had 19 homers in the final 66 games of the season. And now so far this season, he has 16 home runs in his first 56 games. So just another quick description of all of that wonky home run output for Carroll. He had 18 homers in 82 games, and then 11 home runs in his next 166 games, which is basically a full season. To come out with 11 home runs is crazy for a player of Carroll's caliber. And then since then, he has 35 homers over 122 games, which is almost a 50 homer pace for a full season. That's been matched by plus bat speed, plus power metrics. Still amazing speed, one of the best base stealers in the league. Corbin Carroll is a bona fide superstar. He has an outside chance to be the second best in fantasy baseball this season behind Judge. Then we have Fernando Tatis Jr. and the Padres, who's just back to being a superstar. April was amazing. May has not been as good, but everything under the hood tells me that Tatis is still an A-plus level player, the one we've come to expect. I'm really confident in him. One of the best players in fantasy baseball right now, hands down. And then after him, Ronald Acuna Jr., who just came back from his second torn ACL. Definitely some concern with a guy like Acuna coming off ACL tears in each knee over the past 4 seasons, but his first pitch back when he returned, he hit a 470-foot, 115-mile-an-hour home run. Did the John Morant grenade celebration afterwards. Just such a freak of nature. Looks like he has not missed a beat in his first week off the injured list. The utmost confident that he's going to be a monster the rest of the year. And then the last guy in this tier, Juan Soto. So much to say about Soto and the 230 batting average and 7 home runs through his first 55 games as a Met, but I really think this is all going to even out. He's been one of the most unlucky players in all of baseball this season in terms of the difference between his expected WOBA and his actual WOBA. Still hits the ball incredibly hard. Still lifting it in the air enough. I know he's hitting a lot of ground balls, specifically to the first baseman this season. I know myself as a Mets fan, kind of frustrated by the production so far, but just seeing how good the process stats still are at the time of this recording, same amount of walks as strikeouts. Again, some of the best power metrics in the league. I really think this is just understanding the pressure that comes with that monster contract, and I have no concerns about Soto's production from this point forward to the end of the season. Because of course, when I'm doing these rankings, I'm doing them from this point forward. I'm considering what's happened already this year, but the way I'm thinking about this, and the way you guys should be thinking about this kind of stuff for your teams as well, is how these players will perform and how productive they will be from exactly right now to the end of the year. What they've done already is great, but it doesn't have much of a bearing on what's going to happen afterwards. All right, now moving on to tier 3. Still some of the best and safest players in fantasy baseball, but definitely just not the same level of superstar caliber as the guys I've already mentioned. We have Mookie Betts, Wyatt Langford, Julio Rodriguez, Yordan Alvarez, Jackson Merrill, and James Wood. So starting with Betts, one of the most productive players in the league, we know that. The power metrics, the underlying stuff, a little concerning, not hitting the ball as hard, Bat speed's down a little bit, but such a great run producer in that Dodgers lineup. No doubts whatsoever about him, but understanding that the top end of Mookie Betts that we've seen to this point in his career might just not be there anymore, and that's okay because he is getting a little bit older. The next we have Wyatt Langford on the Rangers. Langford has become sneakily one of the most well-rounded players in the game. He's got 30-30 speeds, playing a decent center field for the Rangers. Doesn't swing and miss very much, great power metrics, great bat speed. He's just a complete total rock right now. It's amazing he's doing this at such a young age, and I don't know how much higher the ceiling gets for a guy like Langford, but I also don't know how much lower than this his floor actually is. Again, just such a rock. Then Julio Rodriguez, who I think gets some unnecessary flack for not matching the superstar caliber production we saw from him as a rookie, but also just had a way better May than he had in April when he started the season kind of cold. He was a 680 OPS in April, a 780 OPS in May. And I know the 780 OPS still isn't good, but even after having one bad month and one good month, still not a month up to Julio's caliber, he's still on pace for 30 homers and really hasn't even gotten hot yet. We know we're going to get a supernova hot streak from Julio Rodriguez. We know that for a fact. He's just so good. And I think right now in the fantasy baseball space, he's being a little bit underrated. Then we have Yordan Alvarez, who had a horrible start to the season and has been on the injured list for a few weeks now with a hand issue. He is set to come back soon though from that hand issue. He's been taking batting practice with the team. I don't even think he's going to go on a rehab stint. I think he's going to walk right back in the middle of the Astros lineup. And he's just way too good to be this bad. A guy like Yordan Alvarez, who's still in the prime of his career and has been statistically probably like the second or third best hitter in baseball, maybe fourth over the past 3-4 years cumulatively, just too good to be this bad. Blatant top 10 outfielder in the league still. And then we got the two young studs, Jackson Merrill and James Wood. First, Merrill. In terms of real-life baseball, it's amazing what he's turned himself into already in just his second full year in the league. A shortstop his whole professional career, now a lights-out defensive center fielder is amazing. High batting average, just silly bat control. He's so good at able to get his barrel on a pitch anywhere in the zone, even some pitches out of the zone. There's really no place to pitch to him, which is amazing, which really plays into his game because he swings a lot incessantly. If there is a hole in Merrill's game, it's probably a little bit of overswinging and overchasing, but he's so good with that bat. The bat control is ridiculous that he can really get to everything. It's just such high quality of contact wherever a pitch is, and he's rode that to a 900 OPS and 5 home runs in just 30 games this year because he dealt with a little bit of a hamstring strain. Maybe I'm underrating him a little bit evenly. He could probably be in the top of this tier, but still being in this tier, the tier is kind of flat within it, so I think Merrill is a stud. And then lastly, James Wood. James Wood's a superstar. The guy's 22 years old. This is his first full major league season, and he has a 900 OPS, and he's on pace for 40 homers, 20 steals, and has a 950 OPS. Again, as a 22-year-old. And he still really hasn't even figured out how to pull the ball. That was the big hole with him last year. He couldn't pull his fly balls. We thought he wasn't accessing enough of his power. He's still not really pulling a lot of his fly balls, but he's still getting to this much power, 40 homer pace. There's a chance over the next 2-3 seasons that James Wood is the bona fide best player in the league. And I really don't even think we're that far off from that. All right, now moving on to tier 4. Sorry if I'm moving a little quick, guys, but I had my weekly coffee today and the brain's just kind of buzzing, so I know I do usually talk fast. Might even be talking a little bit faster right now, but this tier 4, we got Teoscar Hernandez, Brent Rooker, Jarren Duran, O'Neal Cruz, and an interesting one, you guys might think I'm underrating this guy, Pete Crow Armstrong. But starting at the top of this tier with Teoscar, just such a steady producer, great bat speed, great power, and a great Dodgers lineup. His run production is crazy right now, hitting the middle of that lineup, so many runs, so many RBIs, that's not going to stop anytime soon. Then Brent Rooker on the Athletics. I know he's not outfield eligible in every league, but he has been playing some outfield this year, so in some leagues he is outfield eligible, so I wanted to shout him out for that. Started the year slow, getting hot of late. I also think that playing the outfield a little bit has helped Rooker this year because as I've mentioned a few times in this channel, a weird thing's happening with the Athletics this year where they're playing in a minor league ballpark. A minor league ballpark is not going to have the same amenities a major league ballpark does. All major league ballparks, if you walk down through the tunnel, you get to a batting cage. And that's where a lot of designated hitters, like Rooker does most of the time, can take their hacks in between at bats and stay warm. The A's don't have that in Sacramento. So I think Rooker was kind of getting cold in between his at bats and was hurting his production early. Now that he's playing the outfield a little more often, it seems like he's a bit more in the flow of the game. Still makes great swing decisions, still very high quality of contact. And the A's park in Sacramento is only going to become more hitter friendly as the weather warms. Such a rock in fantasy. Then Jarren Duran, another rock. He has started the season kind of cold, and he's still been highly productive, atop a talented Red Sox top of the order. Bottom of the Red Sox order gets a little ugly. Top of the order, still very good. Duran's awesome. No issues, no qualms with him whatsoever. And again, guys, when I do these rankings, I'm mostly doing them for points leagues. So if you guys are playing in rotisserie categories leagues, a guy like Duran who's stealing tons of bases probably jumps up a tier because those stolen bases become very valuable in those leagues. But in a points league, they kind of get washed away and just kind of blend into all-around production from a player. Next guy, one of my favorites. I'm sure if you guys watch this channel, you know that. O'Neal Cruz on the Pirates. Very cool. He's both outfield and shortstop eligible. Also very cool that playing center field, it was rough early in the season. He is starting to get his footing out there, and that makes sense because he's such an athletic specimen. But right now, he's on the 35 homer, 50 steal pace with an 840 OPS. And he's made a lot of big gains this year, especially in terms of swing decisions, chasing way fewer pitches out of the strike zone, doing that by just swinging much less. He's being more patient. He's drawing a lot more walks. That kind of makes sense because of how bad the Pirates order is around him. Why would any pitcher pitch that 6'7" behemoth with some of the best raw power in the league? But I still think he has another step to take because he still has a really, really low contact rate. But again, he's so big. The swing is so long because he's, again, 6'7". Maybe that contact rate never comes. But even if he just stays the player that he is right now, fantasy superstar running away. And then lastly, Pete Crow Armstrong. Don't yell at me for this one, guys. I think Pete Crow Armstrong is probably the player in the league this year who's elevated himself the most. Of course he has. He's the first player in baseball this year to get to 15 homers and 15 steals. He's the highest WAR in the National League. He looks like a bona fide MVP candidate at the moment. And similar to Duran, he's jumping up at least one tier because those stolen bases become much more valuable in rotisserie and category leagues. In terms of a points league guy, the power is the thing that's going to drive a profile. And I'm still a little curious about how PCA keeps up this power that he's done so far this year. He's pulling his fly balls one of the highest rates in the league, and that's really helping him get to what's pretty good raw power and turning it into amazing game power. He also has made huge gains in his contact rate this season, which I've talked about a few times on this channel, because I've talked about him in tons of different videos, because how can you not on a fantasy baseball channel what PCA has done in the league this year? And I think that's real, and I think that's dramatically elevated his floor, and that makes him a bona fide, top 15, top 20 outfielder in the league. But he still makes some of the worst swing decisions in baseball, and I know at some point this season that's going to catch up with him. He has the highest overall swing rate of any player in the league and the second highest chase rate. Now that he's really made his way around the league and teams are going to fear him because of the player he's become, he's going to see fewer and fewer pitches inside the strike zone, and it's going to be up to him to adjust and stop swinging at those pitches that are out of the strike zone. Maybe he does that. Maybe it's just pure superstar ascension from PCA. But to me, and I've said it before, I think he's a bit of a sell high right now. So I think people are assuming and valuing him as a top 5 outfielder in all of baseball. And I'd probably find a way to offer a trade for basically any of the players I've ranked above him for him while getting another piece. Or even if you could flip him for like a Juan Soto right now, that might sound sacrilege to you guys in your heads, but I think that's one I would definitely take. Again, no disrespect. He's an amazing player, probably the best overall defensive player in baseball. But at some point, those swing decisions have to get him eventually. He has to have a cold streak coming. I know it. Now, moving on to the next tier. Pretty big drop off between these tiers. It's Seiya Suzuki, Riley Green, Jackson Chourio, and Randy Arozarena. Starting with Suzuki, I think he went from being one of the most perpetually underrated players in the league to someone now finally gets the respect he deserves. Always made pretty good swing decisions, always had nutty power. Some of the best raw power in the league for the last few years for Suzuki. But every time he would get pretty hot, he always found a way to just get hurt. And that would kill his production and make his line look just okay at the end of the season when really everything he was doing under the hood was amazing. Also, that Cubs lineup is amazing and has helped him already to 51 RBIs, the most in baseball. 900 OPS, on pace for 40 homers. He is a stud. I'm just very worried he gets injured because the durability has been a problem. And then we have Riley Green, who started slow and put that slow start behind him really quickly, like shockingly quickly. Towards the end of April, his OPS was still about 640. As of making this video right now, it's risen to 820. That's about 1 month's time and increasing his OPS by 200 points. And that OPS peaked at 875 about a week ago. So what Riley Green has done through May is just completely outrageous. Physically, he's so impressive. He has crazy power. That Tigers lineup is much better than expected as well. Riley Green's an awesome player. And then we got Jackson Chourio, one of the most disappointing players in fantasy baseball so far. And it all boils down to the fact that Chourio right now is just simply swinging at the wrong pitches far too often. He has the 6th highest chase rate of all qualified hitters in the league. When I say chase rate, I mean how often you're swinging at pitches that are outside the strike zone, while his zone swing rate, which is how often you're swinging at pitches in the strike zone, is outside the top 40 hitters in the league. That's a bad combination, and one that you don't want to have if you're Jackson Chourio. He has to fix that and get that together, because it's pulling down his whole profile. He's making too much contact with pitches out of the zone. That's killing his power production. It's killing his quality of contact metrics. I still believe in the player. This is very sophomore slump, reminiscent of Julio Rodriguez over the last few years. The high-end potential is still there. There's a lot of kinks that need to be worked out with Chourio right now for him to access that. Now, last in this year, Randy Arozarena started the year blazing hot, has definitely come back to earth, and he's still swinging and missing a lot and getting beat by fastballs. Some of the things that pulled down his profile last year made us realize that, okay, there's a guy, Randy Arozarena, who's definitely exiting his prime. We can see him getting old, but also is so productive. I can see this cold streak extending through June, though, and I think I would predict that the next time I update this outfield tier list, probably in 4 to 6 weeks, Arozarena drops at least 1 tier. All right, now next tier, and there's a wonky tier. This tier has old guys, this tier has young guys, this tier has boring players, this tier has exciting players. It's Lawrence Butler, Cody Bellinger, Jose Altuve, Mike Trout, Elio Ramos, Brian Reynolds, Ian Happ, Stephen Kwan, and Jung-Hoo Lee. Starting at the top with Lawrence Butler. Kind of a disappointing start to the season, but a lot of the things he's doing under the hood make me think a hot streak is coming. It's also ironic with a guy like Lawrence Butler, who popped off through the middle of the season last year. I think he was actually still in the minor leagues exactly a year ago. So that's just a reminder of how much the season left. Basically 65% of the season left. But back to Butler. He's doing something cool this season where he's being much more aggressive on pitches inside the strike zone, and I like that adjustment from him because he's a guy who's never really going to run a high on-base percentage. He's going to swing and miss often, but he will get to the best parts of his game by swinging more at hittable pitches, and he's doing that so far this season, which I love. And again, while he's had kind of a bad start to the season, he's still on a 2020 pace. And like I said with Brent Rooker, that ballpark in Sacramento is only going to get more hitter-friendly as it warms up out there. We're going to have 100-degree games every single day out there soon. He will get hot. Good by low at the moment, I think. Then we have Cody Bellinger, who is seriously turned it on after a very, very, very slow start to the season. Had some Yankee fans questioning why they even got this guy. 950 OPS in May with 5 home runs, making better swing decisions than last year, still having a high contact rate, still pulling tons of his fly balls and really using that short porch in right field at Yankee Stadium well. The Yankee lineup is also awesome. Bellinger's hitting in the middle of it, getting tons of runs and RBIs. Really good baseball player. I think sometimes a guy like Bellinger, who had such a high to start his career, won the MVP award, then kind of really hit the skids hard, but now it's just become a solid dude over the last few years, gets severely underrated. Then we have Jose Altuve, another guy. Horrible start to the season. He looked kind of done for a little while. Already in his mid to late 30s, definitely out of his prime. Swing decisions were bad. The bat speed was bad. He wasn't producing anything. He looked uncomfortable in the outfield. Things were not looking good for Altuve, but he's been blazing hot over the last 2 weeks and got his full season line up to a really acceptable spot, where now he's up to a 740 OPS and is on pace for about 25 home runs and 10 stolen bases. Those 3 stats right there, that's really good for a guy like Altuve, and he gets a bump in value because he's still second base eligible, which is one of the weakest positions in fantasy baseball. I know he is outfield eligible, playing the outfield regularly this season, so I had to put him in the outfield ranks. But if you have Altuve on your roster, it's very likely that you're actually playing him at second base because that's the position he can make a difference for you. And he does get a bump in the rankings for having that in his profile. Then we have Mike Trout. He's back in the Angels lineup this weekend after dealing with some knee discomfort about a month ago. The Angels really tried to play off that injury, said he was out for precautionary reasons, then he misses a month, but now he's back without a rehab assignment and taking like 2 rounds of BP. Still has high-end power, swinging, missing a lot, probably will get hurt again. I don't know. It's hard to rank a guy like Trout. He's only played 100 games one time in the last 4 seasons, but you still see Trout and you squint and you believe that there's a 40-homer bat in there, so I'm ranking him on that feeling. Then another one of the biggest risers so far this season, Elio Ramos on the Giants. Guy's awesome. Not really a hole in his game. Huge power, good swing decisions, high contact rate, doing a lot in that ballpark in San Francisco. That's not an easy place for right-handed power hitters to excel. And he can easily rise up a tier, maybe a tier and a half or 2 tiers, if he continues to sustain this mid-800s OPS kind of production until the next rankings. Then we have 2 guys who are kind of paired together, always kind of paired together, and always should be kind of paired together. Brian Reynolds and Ian Happ. Both of them not that good to start the season. Reynolds especially has gotten much hotter later. Happ has just been kind of mid the entire way. I kind of like both as buy lows. They've both been so solid for so long, too good to be this bad. Both of them not that old yet, just around 30. Shouldn't really be exiting their primes yet. Maybe not at the height of their primes, but again, just too solid for too long to actually just fall off a cliff like this. Like them both as buy lows. And not really scared about keeping these guys in my top 30 rankings. Even a 10-team league, they shouldn't be on your waiver wire. Then Steven Kwan, one of my favorites in the league, such a dog. In your guys' points leagues, he's amazing because that batting average stays so high. He's keeping his OPS really, really high. Gets to enough power. You know, you're getting your 10, 12, 15 home runs from Steven Kwan. He's stealing his bases. Just such a baseball rat. One of my favorite guys to watch in the whole league. And then Jung-Hoo Lee, who's come back to earth after a really, really hot start for the Giants. He was definitely never that player, but I do think he can sustain this high 700s, like 770, 780 OPS, drag his way to 12, 15 homers, probably get up to 20 stolen bases, hopefully at some point. I think he'll need to steal a little bit more than that. I love his high contact rate that comes from not striking out. All that contact rate and just putting the ball gap after gap leads to tons of extra base hits. I really love these low strikeout rate guys in points leagues. Jung-Hoo Lee, Steven Kwan, they're the epitome of that. Because every single game, they just produce points. There's never any negatives to come from these guys. Then the next tier. This is when we start to get to the fringe of starting outfielders in your guys' 10-team leagues. We're now outside the top 30. We have Taylor Ward, Michael Harris, Lars Nootbaar, Brandon Donovan, Tommy Edman, Brenton Doyle, Wilyer Abreu, and Jason Dominguez. Starting off with Taylor Ward. Such a red-hot few weeks for Ward that's got him up to 15 home runs. But hilariously, even with those 15 home runs, he has about a 260 on-base percentage. I do think he's a guy that's perpetually underrated. The projections always love him, but it's hard to stay very consistent at the plate when you're running that low of an on-base percentage. While he's hot, though, you have to ride the hot hand. I think he probably is a guy right now. Your 10, definitely your 12-team league should be on every single roster. Absolutely no doubt. Then Michael Harris, who's just so annoying. It's so annoying to roster this guy in fantasy baseball because it's ice cold, usually to start the year, every single season. And you know the crazy hot streak is coming, but he's so cold and he makes such bad swing decisions, takes hacks at everything out of the strike zone, but then you see the top-end power, you know he's still a lights-out defender in center field, still a top athlete in the league. It's just so frustrating. It makes you want to rip your hair out, but you know the hot streak coming and you can't let go. Got him mad there, but whatever. On to Lars Nootbaar. Kind of the anti-Michael Harris, because Lars Nootbaar is like a plus player across the board, does everything well. Great swing decisions, great power, great contact, good defense, good speed. He still just can't really break through and become like a star player. He still just hangs out in that like 750, 770 OPS range. But we're going to see like a 25 homer, 15 steals, 770 OPS season. That's very productive. That's awesome from Nootbaar. And something that's definitely elevating his ceiling right now, and something we're going to talk about with a bunch of these outfielders now, and we get towards the end of the 50. He used to be someone that got platooned often as a left-handed batter. He's not getting platooned at all anymore, playing every single day. When you miss a couple games a week in weekly fantasy leagues, that torpedoes your value. It's horrible for you to play 5 games a week instead of 6 or 7 games a week. Not happening for Nootbaar anymore, and he's the everyday leadoff hitter in what's been a surprisingly quite good lineup in St. Louis. Then we have his teammate Brendan Donovan. Hot start to the year. A lot of his fantasy value and a lot of the points that he's created so far this season is really being held up by what's an exceedingly high batting average around 330. There's no way that maintains, but it won't drift down that much. Like, he's definitely not going to be a 300 batting average guy, like a 290, 285. Great player. And also second base eligible, which we love because that position is terrible. Same with the next guy, Tommy Edman. It's amazing that the Dodgers have turned Tommy Edman into this slap hitter to a legitimate power hitter, decent barrel rate, decent hard hit rate, and a shrinking contact rate. I really kind of can't believe it, but it's working. The runs and RBIs will definitely come in bunches, hitting in that lineup, and his amazing defense keeps him in the lineup every day. And again, that second base eligibility is so valuable because that position stinks. And I say it 20 times this video. Then next up, maybe one of the freakiest athletes in the entire league is Brenton Doyle on the Rockies. I really feel a hot streak coming from Doyle, despite an OPS that's just hanging out in the 600s, the low 600s even, because the power metrics are solid just as they were last season, and his swing decisions are better than they were last season. He's chasing fewer pitches out of the strike zone, still being aggressive on pitches in the strike zone, and not swinging and missing as often. He was able to have a 760 OPS last season, and those swing decisions were bad, and the power metrics were basically the same, if not a tiny bit worse. I think there's a real heater coming, and he gets back up into that 750, 760 OPS range he was last year, especially as an everyday baseball player on the Rockies and Coors Field. I know that team is horrible, but the top of the lineup isn't really dreadful. It's mostly their pitching that's terrible, and the bottom of the lineup, of course. But him hitting at the top of that lineup, there's a lot of production coming through the rest of the season from Brenton Doyle. So I'm going to take a very hard look at if he's on your waiver wire in shallow leagues. Then Wilyer Abreu, another huge riser through the early part of the season. We didn't know what his role would be, if he'd be able to get near everyday playing time on the Red Sox because of a very crowded outfield, but he has mostly gotten that this season, and the talent has really shown through. He's on a 35 homer pace with an 840 OPS. That's amazing. But the one thing that keeps Abreu's value down and keeps him outside the top 30 on these rankings is, like I alluded to with Nootbaar, Abreu as a left-handed batter does not play every day. He sits against left-handed pitchers. You're not going to see that many left-handed pitchers in the league, but whenever you see them, he will sit. So you're going to have some weeks from Abreu where he's just simply only playing 4 or 5 games. And in a weekly league, that's a tough decision because you have to balance out for Abreu, a player that's usually better than the other option, 2 fewer games. And that's a hard thing to judge and decision I often don't want to make. If you're in a daily league, Abreu gets vaulted up because when he's playing the lefties, you can throw him on your bench. But in a weekly league, that really hurts his value. And it's a tough thing to evaluate because he is such a good player, but you can't earn fantasy points if you're not playing games. Now, the last player in this tier, Jason Dominguez on the Yankees. Dominguez has not really had a great season at this point. It's a pretty good season. Decent looking stat line. But a lot of that stat line has been propped up by a big 3-homer game he had in Sacramento. That being said, I think there's a really good summer that's going to be coming up from Dominguez. He does a lot of the very important things well. He hits the ball really hard. He has really good bat speed. He doesn't swing at many pitches out of the strike zone. But I think there was some passivity in Dominguez's game through this first chunk of the season that has kind of limited his production. But with that he's kind of breaking out of his shell. He's being more aggressive on pitches in the zone, but the swing decisions have still stayed very good. Again, no matter what, he's not really expanding it, but he is finding his confidence, getting more aggressive. He's just hitting too many opposite field fly balls. I don't know why he's doing that. Especially a guy playing in Yankee Stadium, you got to hunt that short porch as a left-handed hitter. You have to hunt that short porch as a predominantly left-handed hitter because Dominguez is a switch hitter. So mostly he's facing right-handed pitchers, mostly he's hitting from the left side. I really see a good summer coming here. He does too many of the important things well to not be highly productive. And even with a slow start, it's a 750 OPS. I think that could get well above 800 through the summer. And I think Dominguez right now is probably one of the most criminally underrated players in redraft fantasy leagues. I'm kind of giving him a bump in these rankings on the projection and the potential alone right now. I'd be seeking to add him to my team in places that I can. Now the next tier, the second to last tier, we have Christian Yelich, Anthony Santander, Byron Buxton, Tyler Soderstrom, and George Springer. Funny to stick Soderstrom in this tier with all the old guys, but starting off the top with Yelich, he's just swinging and missing at everything. I've been really hopeful on Yelich this season, mostly because of how good he looked in the first half last year with near MVP level production, but then having the really scary back surgery, it kind of feels like he's overcompensating for that back right now, maintaining his high bat speed, but swinging through everything. That tells me he might be a little bit out of control in the box. I'd be looking for Yelich at some point this season if his bat speed reduces so he can increase his contact rate, because the contact rate is so low right now, he's not even close to being a productive player. But again, I'm still leaving him in this top 50 and even in the second to last tier of the top 50 because I saw that big production last season. I'm still dreaming on he gets some of that back. But I am getting quite nervous, especially for a guy like Yelich who is in his mid-30s and has had a lot of back injuries the last few years. Next update, I don't really know where he's going to be. But for a couple more weeks, at least another month, I'm still going to run him out there and believe. Same with the next guy, Anthony Santander. It looks bad right now, but the body of work has been so good for so long and the projections still love him so much, I have to believe the switch flips at some point. But something funny about his profile this season, for the first time in his whole career, he's meaningfully increased his walk rate, but that's come at the expense at a lot of his power production. And that's because he's just swinging less, both at pitches out of the strike zone and in the strike zone. A guy like Santander, who has great power, takes huge hacks, you want him to be aggressive at pitches in the heart of the zone. So far this year, he's not doing that. His run value on pitches in the heart of the zone has dropped from plus 10 last year to a ridiculous minus 12 so far this year. It's one of the lowest in the league, and way lower than any power hitter is supposed to be. The more Anthony Santander swings, the more productive he will be. He's going to understand his role in this Blue Jays team that desperately needs power production, and he has to get back to the plate approach he had last year with the Orioles. If he does that, he's jumping up probably at least 2 or 3 tiers, minimum. Then we have Byron Buxton, who's having an incredible season, but oh my God, guess what? Byron Buxton got hurt. It was a concussion, kind of a freak thing with that crazy collision with Carlos Correa. I'm definitely looking to see how productive he stays the rest of the season because something always goes wrong when Buxton plays well, which has been kind of the curse he's had his whole career. Then we have Tyler Soderstrom in the Athletics. Crazy he's outfield eligible. He's moved to the outfield in part-time role since they called up Nick Kurtz, their superstar prospect, to play first base because Soderstrom's just a bit better of an athlete, a little more fluid than Kurtz is. And Soderstrom looked like he was breaking out in a huge way to start the season. Through the middle of April, he was the home run leader in the league. But since April 18th, he has 1 home run, a .590 OPS, and a 30% strikeout rate. That is bad, bad, bad. I'm remembering the hot start, and I'm believing there's another one in him, but he's one of the biggest fallers through the last month of the season, and someone I am a bit worried about moving forward. Now, the last guy in this tier, George Springer. Bottom line with Springer, Unk still got it. He's made a pretty serious adjustment this season to trade what last year was an okay contact rate and okay power metrics to have not that good of a contact rate, but really, really good power metrics all of a sudden. That is still only wound up as an 18 homer and 20 steal pace, which isn't really that sexy. But Springer also still has elite swing decisions. He has one of the highest walk rates in the league, maintaining that really high on base percentage with this 20 homer power. And every time he does actually hit the ball, tattooing it, that makes him a great, boring, and underrated option in your leagues. He's probably available in a good chunk of 12-team leagues right now, and I think he's at least a starting caliber player in most of those. Now moving on to the last tier. We have Kyle Stowers, Cedric Mullins, Luis Robert, Nick Castellanos, Andy Pages, TJ Friedel, and then a big platoon mashup at the end. It's not exactly going to be, I'm tying in Trent Grisham, Kerry Carpenter, and Ryan O'Hearn into the 50th ranked outfielder, all in one shot. But starting with Stowers at the top, monster power production, incredible underlying power metrics, great bat speed, lifts the ball, pulls the ball. Doing things a power hitter hasn't done with Marlins Park as a home park since Jorge Soler years ago. And also at the same time, he's getting a swing and miss in check. It's a strikeout rate that's fallen under 30% and a whiff rate that's slightly improving. Stowers has played better so far this season than to be in this tier, and he's found ways to make incremental improvements that make me believe he is better than where I'm ranking him here. I just want to see it for a little bit longer because when a player like Stowers like this, who's a late bloomer, pops off for the first 2 months of the season, I know I want to believe it in my heart, but need to see more right before I can actually believe it with my head. But if you guys have Stowers on a roster right now, you keep riding that hot hand, of course. But if you can get peak value for him in a trade, I would strongly consider selling him high. Then we have Cedric Mullins, who's been highly productive this season also with 10 homers, 8 steals, and a .770 OPS. That's a 30 homer, 25 steal pace through a season because we're about a third of the way through. He did just go on the injured list with a hamstring strain, but they are expecting him to only be out for the minimum of 10 games. Then Luis Robert, I know the stats are abysmal, but all the underlying stuff is still amazing with Robert. It's high bat speed. It's the best swing decision he's ever made in his life. He's chasing fewer pitches out of the strike zone and still going after the pitches in the middle. And he leads the league in stolen bases. Luis Robert will get traded before the deadline this year, and I think he's going to go off when he's reinvigorated getting off the White Sox. He's one of the few players that's been on this team from when they were good to now being horrific. And I think that really messes with a guy's head. Of course, it's not an excuse. If you're a good player, you should be productive no matter what the situation is around you. But it's not like he's dogging it. It's not like he's quitting. He's playing great outfield defense, and he is stealing these bags. Again, most steals in the league. I think that when he gets to a new team, you're going to see a switch flip with Robert and pop off through the second half. Now, you can't really wait for that. You can't really roster a guy like Robert in a shallow league just to be like, when he gets traded, he's going to be good. But be vigilant on your waiver wire. Be ready to go when that move happens. Bang, snap him up. Then Nick Castellanos, middle lineup contributor in a good team, just such a boring run producer. Has always been and will continue to be. Andy Pages is next. Really big breakout this season. Earned himself an everyday role on the Dodgers, which is very valuable. But I am a little bit concerned for his profile. Just kind of all right swing decisions, just kind of all right power metrics. He's making a lot of contact right now and getting pretty fortunate with his batted balls. That probably does come back to earth at some point. But again, everyday player in the Dodgers lineup, that's incredibly valuable in fantasy. You're just kind of falling into so many runs scored, so many RBIs, and you're hitting towards the middle of this lineup every single day. Then TJ Friedel on the Reds, just such a grinder, having a great May, undrafted guy, worked his way to the league, really no physical tools, but doesn't strike out, makes tons of contact. Kind of just a slightly worse version of a Jung Hoo Lee, who's a few tiers ahead, but has a great home park in Cincinnati. So helps a guy like Friedel with really just no raw power whatsoever still be able to run into a couple home runs. Points league king, TJ Friedel. And now lastly, the platoon guys. Trent Grisham, Kerry Carpenter, Ryan O'Hearn. Grisham and O'Hearn have been some of the best hitters so far this season, especially O'Hearn. It was like a 950 OPS. Grisham taking a big step forward with the Yankees. Great swing decisions, great power metrics. Carpenter has not really taken his walks this year as a guy who used to take some walks, but again, still has very high quality of contact. But these are guys that are just simply not playing every day. O'Hearn has gotten fortunate that the Orioles have only faced 4 total left-handed pitchers in the entire month of May. And their team is so bad right now, and they've dealt with so many injuries, that he actually is starting against the bulk of those lefties. But I think there will be a point this season where he goes back into the platoon role, especially if he likely gets traded, which we're trending that way because of how bad the Orioles are. It's just in a weekly fantasy league, which I know that's what most of us play in. If you're missing a few games every single week, at least one game every single week, that's just going to dampen your value a lot. So while these guys on talent and skill and production so far are definitely better than somewhere around the 50th ranked outfielder in fantasy, that slight lack of playing time will just knock them down a peg. It has to. You win fantasy baseball by having as many plate appearances as possible. You want as many bites of the apples you could possibly have. If you have guys that aren't getting that, they need to get dinged. But all right, guys, that's the updated top 50 outfield rankings for fantasy baseball. Please sound off in the comments. Let me know who's ranked too high. Let me know who's ranked too low. Let me know why. Talking about why you're scared about Juan Soto right now. Much more scared than I am, I'm sure. Please let me know anything you got down there. I love responding to comments. But thank you guys so much for being here again. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please go down there and click that big black subscribe button. Otherwise, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.